All right, we're back again. We're live. Uh-oh. Why is the scene wrong? There we go. Goofed on that one. Sorry about that. All yours. We are actually back on the air again and talking about stocks. We have a legend with us today.
How do we not? Oh, all right. We have my screen. All right. I didn't.
Jeremy's showing his kids like kitty stuff again, right? This is the third time he's done that since we've started
I
this thing,
know.
Louis.
Yeah. But yeah, now we got the screen.
Pictures of Jeremy's cats and stuff. We get a lot of that.
And when I move my mouse
Probably
around,
better.
sometimes it'll flicker and do weird stuff. I'm grabbing off of a screen.
Well,
Right,
better
so-
most days than pictures of the spy, except in the past 3
True.
days. Let's let's do a market update, and we'll introduce our guest, and we'll bring him in because I definitely would love to hear what he thinks about the market as well. So we're on right now our third straight up day. I think a lot of it is because Besant is the guy who's doing the talking right now, and versus Letnick and Navarro. Trump is still tweeting, and you've still got contradictory things coming from him. But I think the fact that Besant's talking, Besant's engaged, gives market participants some confidence. I mean, I don't think this is over. I do think the lows are probably in. If they get taken out, then obviously I'm wrong and we take another leg down. I would not be shocked for us to retest those lows. I've personally been, and I wrote about this in today's newsletter, very slowly adding back equity exposure. Mostly in gold and silver miners, crypto-related companies, be getting more into biotech, specifically, biotech that's got some benefit from AI. And I'm starting to get back into some of the AI infrastructure names, and also a little bit on the Magnificent Seven, not a lot there yet, but starting to slowly kind of scale back in, just because I think, again, now that the adult in the room is doing the talking, maybe we can make something out of this move. But, I'm also really nimble. I will get extremely hedged if I need to. And again, I'm only slowly dipping my toe back in. So those are my thoughts. Jeremy, what do you think?
More of the same. I'm also adding a little bit into volatility, just kind of cautiously, a toe at a time. The other day I was adding to MSTU when it took that nice drop. Running the wheel on that has just been awesome. And then I'm starting to kind of ease into NVIDIA a little bit as well. So just thinking that something's got to break here with all the showmanship we've seen in the White House these days, and eventually I think there's going to be something to look forward to. Just the way the charts are setting up, it seems like we're in for a bigger move pretty soon here.
All right, Pat, you want to introduce our guest?
First of all, this is Louis Navellier, famous investor. I got to say, New York Times called Mr. Navellier an icon among growth investors. I don't think I can say more. That's probably 10 enough. 10 words is enough. Louis, what do you have to say, my man?
Well, since you're talking about Scott Besson, I do have an article in Market Watch basically saying that he's the real guy in charge. But if you want to know the dirt, on August 9th, Howard Lutnick and Scott met with Trump, and they told him in a nice way that he's not in charge anymore because the bond vigilantes are in charge. And then Trump, before the market opening on Truth Social, tweeted in all caps to buy, and exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. And that was probably a great market call. And that rally on April 9th was stunning. Probably the biggest rally I'll see in my lifetime. We retested the lows on Monday, and there was no volume on that retest, so I don't think we have to retest anymore. And now we have earnings driving the market. Obviously, GDP, if it is negative, it's just due to dumping of gold in America and dumping of goods, destroyed the trade deficit. But we just got to phenomenal durable goods order today. 4 months in a row, strong durable goods, and we're going to be fine. Strongest retail sales in 2 months in March. So, and we have deflation. If you look at the PPI, you look at the CPI last 2 months, and I would agree with Trump on Powell. You know, he's anticipating something that's not there. And so why don't we just look at the data for a change and then react? I do expect the dollar gets mojo back, and the bond vigilantes had their say, and now they're going to come back to the dollar, and they're going to be buying our treasuries because there's nowhere to go. I mean, you can't go to China; they may devalue. Their rates are lower in Japan, and Europe's still in a recession. They're losing households, and they're just screwed, to be honest with you. So we're the oasis, and everything's coming back to America.
So interesting point you made, and I agree with everything you said. One of the things I've been noticing is a lot of Wall Street research is coming out saying sell rallies in the US and buy Asia and Europe. I mean, I don't personally like the idea of touching Europe, not Japan. I do trade Chinese names from time to time. It sounds like, you're not agreeing with that. You're thinking the US is still the place to be.
Oh yeah, I mean I buy some Chinese ADRs. I have the NET, which is cloud computing in Hong Kong. I have HSAI, which is LiDAR systems for self-driving. But those are the only two Chinese stocks I have at this time, and I only buy ADRs that meet our rules. But I'm a member of the media. They call me to write articles. Market Watch called me to write an article. Barron's called me to write an article. This is just last week. So I am a member of the media, and I can tell you pretty much all the negative news was emanating from Europe. Obviously, they hate Trump.
Yeah.
The Brits were embracing China. Of course, China is throwing tons of money in Britain on infrastructure, the airport, which stopped working, their water system, all kinds of stuff. And the Brits are always clinically depressed. It's not so much the weather; it's just things are really bad there. Half the Brits can't even pay their electric bill; they have to be subsidized. And Starmer's, shut down the oil drilling in Scotland and stuff. And so I guess Scotland can succeed now. I mean, it's I think they tried that a few hundred years ago, but it's really dire in Europe right now, and it's all fueled by shrinking households, and they're not assimilating the immigrants anymore. They have to stay in their own little zones. They have their own little courts, and Britain used to assimilate immigrants, so did Germany, but they just got overrun. And the EU is meddling in all these countries, and they just shut down two media outlets in Poland. They messed with the Romanian election. The guy that won the first runoff, they disallowed. They disallowed Marie Le Pen, who controls the French Parliament. They messed with one of Maloney's lieutenants. One of my more outrageous. I am a member of the media, so you have to have outrageous things to get hits. And so early in the year, I said there'd be 4 rate cuts this year, and now that may come to fruition, I had to have another outrageous thing. So my new outrageous comment is Italy might become our 51st state after the EU implodes. And I think that'd be a good idea because first they have a lot of debt, and we can absorb their debt. And at least 40% of us are Italian in America anyway. And then we can move all those German military bases to Italy. And I love Maloney. I think she's great. Although Elon really loves her. I mean, that's interesting. Okay.
No, good point.
Yeah, I like that idea better than Canada being our 51st.
Agreed.
State, so.
Well, they have the election on the 28th, and unfortunately, both candidates are net zero. And Mark Carney is a big globalist, big Davos guy, and but the problem with net zero is what does Alberta do? Okay, and what does Saskatchewan do? Because one of the problems with the going with the Paris Climate Accord is that you have to stop using chemical fertilizer. So that this really messes Saskatchewan, which is all potash. And that's why you had all the farm protests in Europe. First, they had to seize 30% of their land and just stop using it. They had to start culling their herd. So in Ireland, they killed 6,000 dairy cows last year. They had to stop using chemical fertilizers, go to organics. That cuts your output. So the farmers in Europe are going nuts because they import stuff from Latin America that doesn't play by these rules. Okay. And that really created the political movement in Europe that started with the Farm Party in the Netherlands and spread to Austria and the AFD party in Germany and of course Marie Le Pen and hasn't worked yet in Britain, but the Conservative Party there messed up. But Nigel Farage has a new party, so we'll see if he succeeds.
I have some.
Can I ask a question here? It kind of plays into this, and I've been meaning to ask this for the last couple of weeks to somebody. And Lou, you seem like the guy that may have the answer, right? And you and Matt, obviously. So everyone's been talking about China owning our bonds. So they own all our debt. Is it such that China can just sell trillions of bonds, drop the dollar from wherever it was to wherever it is now? I mean, is that what's happening here, or is it that nefarious, or is there just something normal? God, everyone thinks America sucks, so they're selling the dollar. Is that what's going on?
Well, they're part of the bond vigilante group, and they can do a shot across the bow, and that's apparently what they did. But it wasn't just them; it was Europe and other countries. And don't know if Japan did it, but China's screwed. I mean, their rates are lower than Japan. They are the next Japan. They're going to have rates at or near zero for 20 years. The Financial Times is talking about them devaluating, and this is a publication that praises China for dumping all that money in Britain. No one trusts them. Remember, they dispatched the tanks on the streets when some their people tried to take money out of the banks, and so they have this incredible demographic collapse. You're losing households. Everybody's outsourcing away from China. I mean, even though they're big, so it's very dire there, and Xi also got rid of all his reformers. He's an authoritarian figure, and he doesn't travel much. He's supposed to meet Trump in May, so it'll be interesting where they meet. But he's I think he's scared to travel because he might come home and not be in charge. So he's got his own threats from within.
So, but you had said earlier, everyone's got to come back into the dollar anyway. So probably now is the time to get long the dollar and the bonds, obviously, is what you're saying. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and the other thing, we have a lot of collateral behind our dollar. I'm somewhat surprised that Trump hasn't taken El Toro and turned it into oceanfront lots, or Vandenberg Air Force Base and turned it into oceanfront lots, because Pacific Palisades will not be rebuilt in time for the Olympics. So you have to make some nice areas in the U.S. But yeah, we own the Presidio. I mean, we own Lafayette Field. I mean, that stuff's worth a lot of money. And I have a home in Nevada, and the feds own 90% of Nevada. So, although Biden retired a lot of ranch land just to comply with the Paris Climate Accord. And so the ranchers are mad. So I think that will get reversed.
Yeah, and Pat, on your comment on the bonds, I've been a big fan of TLT. I think that is one of the Trump trades because they're going to try to get interest rates down. Here's a chart. You see April 7th was the day that the bond vigilantes came in. It was also the day the market made a low. And then you kind of see the bounce here on the 11th. We had a little bit of a retest, but so far so good. So yeah, I mean, I hope you're right. I've got a position in TLT myself. So
like, if let's say you're China and you're selling the dollar and you're selling the treasuries. I mean, where do you put that money, Lee? You just said, where would they put it? There's no really where else to go, right?
Gold. You can buy it from
gold.
Yeah. I recommend 5 gold stocks: AM, AGI, IDR, KRC, and EGO. And they're a great counterbalance. They zig when everything else zags. COMEX reserves in the U.S. shot up 43%, 25 in January, 25% February. This is supposed to take 1.8% off our trade deficit. I mean, our GDP estimate. I'm sorry, first quarter. The London Gold Exchange, it used to get your money in a day and a half. Now it's 6 weeks because they're dumping money in America. Just so you know, dictatorship 101 is you got to take all the gold out of the central bank. So what Maduro did in Venezuela, he was melting gold in Uganda. And those gold bars actually came from the U.S. during World War II, because I guess we needed the oil from Venezuela for the Liberty ships. And so, but he totally depleted his central bank's gold reserves. So that's bringing up some rumors like what's going on with America. We had the whole Stacey Abrams thing. She got $2 billion to upgrade the appliances on 89 homes, and a green thing, which Georgia's not very green, but but she personally got paid in gold. And so
Really?
Elon's spreading all the rumors like, I think we need to audit, Fort Knox just to make sure it's really there. Because
I mean,
again,
how much does 2 billion in gold weigh? I mean, you just can't walk around with it in a shoebox or
Yeah,
anything.
you ever watch the movie Goldfinger?
yeah.
I don't forgot what happened. They had 2 billion in gold and they had to put it into
No, Goldfinger's plan that he told his people was they were going to steal the gold, but James Bond realized you can't steal the gold. You're obviously, lying to these people because it's too much to steal.
All right. I got you. Okay. All right.
So, and we've been pounding the table on gold and the gold miners for a bit. And I own a bunch of what you mentioned. I also own Franco-Nevada. I've been getting into the silver miners and silver recently. So curious what your thoughts are on that.
It's just an amplified version of gold. It's more cyclical. It's about 3 times more volatile. So just if you want more excitement in your life, buy silver.
I like to have some excitement every once in a while.
So why is that, Matt? Is like Kodak making a comeback, real soon, or what do people
I
do
don't
with
think
silver?
Kodak is making a comeback. What I was noticing was the silver miners and silver were lagging. So, for diversification, when I saw some chart patterns I liked, I got into a couple of them. I actually just bought silver or SLV this morning. It had a little bit of a pullback. Obviously, the time to buy it would have been the pullback. What is that? Tuesday, but I didn't. So I bought the pullback today instead.
All right. So I'm gonna take the lead here on something, yeah. So Louis, I'm pretty much up to speed on what you've been talking about on your website, which is investorplace.com, by the way. And some of your other things. So you talk quite a bit about quantum. I don't know, I never heard the term QAAS before until I read your research, which is SAAS for quantum. I would talk about your top pick, but maybe you can talk about that if you want. But what I will say, what I did read is that breakthroughs in quantum computing will enable humans to cure diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's, etc. Really good for the battery tech industry. Good for portfolio management, you said. Losers are middle-class jobs. You want to talk about that some, sir, please?
Sure. Well, I think to understand why we have to switch to quantum computing is Jensen, the NVIDIA founder, did a talk in front of Stanford Business School. It's on YouTube. I think it's 55 minutes. And Jensen explained that as he rolls out, there's 2 more versions of the Blackwell chip coming. They have different names. The last name's a quantum computing name. But he can't make his chips faster after the next 2 rollouts because he will be approaching the atomic level on the circuit boards for the transistors. So it's just really hard to split atoms and make your chips faster. It might have some side effects. So then you have to go to quantum computing, and NVIDIA has been sponsoring how to program quantum computing. And they have some insight from the gaming expertise they have. But obviously, quantum computing uses ones and zeros, not a 1 or 0. So there's this stock called IONQ, which has quid bits, and there's another stock that won the NVIDIA quantum computing contest. And so we've been writing about these things. I haven't had these in my newsletters, but these are like bonus reports because people want to know. And they're extremely speculative stocks. And of course, you probably heard Jensen say nobody's going to make money in quantum computing for, 15 years or something. He kind of went back on that. But they're basically trying to hammer out the language. It's like a C or Fortran, and that's what they're doing. And then it'll be a brave new world, and of course everything will suck a lot more electricity. And whether that's right or wrong, that's the world we'll be living in.
Got it.
No, on the scientific side, just to mention, like altermagnetism is kind of breakthrough for the memory to work with quantum computer hardware. that would actually be able to accept, more than just a binary source. So that's kind of a neat thing. I've been watching IONQ reversion targets pretty much in check at $36. Once we break out of that, I think it's got lots of upside. So
Yeah, it has real sales. So and then the company that won the Nvidia contest also has real sales, and I can't say its name. It's DXAS, I think. I have to check it. And but no, D-Wave. It's D-Wave.
D-Wave, that's it.
Yeah.
Now I remember.
Yeah. And so we write reports on these things, but they're not actually recommended in my newsletters. They're just special reports.
Oh, well.
And then I do, manage money. I sold my management business in 2013, but I still manage $1 billion for friends and family. And but it's pretty hard. If you buy something that doesn't earn money, it's not a good thing. I have to pack all this E&O insurance, and it's like 30 grand a month. And so if I did buy that stuff in my actual portfolios, my E&O would be a lot higher. So under management and the newsletters, we just buy things that earn money.
Well, okay. So I don't mean to pigeonhole you into in this idea, but this is the type of stuff that, we discussed that we like quantum. We have, Matt, why don't you talk about the stuff we have coming out with AI, et cetera? I mean, this kind of fits into our overall theme.
We've got a couple of quantum ETFs coming out. One is using AI to choose the names, and I'm not just looking at the quantum stocks that we mentioned. I'm also looking at stocks that build out that infrastructure. So we've got that coming. We'll see when we launch it. There's another quantum ETF out there. It sucks. I mean, the names in it don't make any sense, but it's got $1 billion in it, and the way the ETF business works, you don't have to necessarily have a good product, if you're the first mover. But we also have a covered call version. I'm not personally a massive fan of covered calls, but that's what the marketplace wants. And I'm an options guy at heart, so I know I can run a covered call ETF better than anybody else out there. So we're doing that. I do think quantum is the future. When that future is 5, 10, 15, 25 years from now, obviously I have no idea. Jensen knows better than me, but people do like to trade these stocks. I talk to self-directed retail all the time, and they like stuff that moves. And
yes, Vertiv obviously beat and then guided higher. They said the AI demand is real. They gapped up 17% the other day after their beat, and they're the independent power producer. And they so that lifted PWR, Quanta Services. I have a little one, PSIX, Power Solutions. AGX is another one. They had a big beat not that long ago. So yeah, the infrastructure is real, the cloud is real, but it's always going to go to where the electricity is cheap. So you find the cloud centers on Columbia River because of hydroelectric. You find the Hoover Dam, hydroelectric. Anywhere there's nuclear, Raleigh, Chicago area. The government actually puts most of its servers in Salt Lake City, which is why the air sucks when you land there, because they're burning coal to run the government file servers. It's funny. I don't know why Biden did that. And then, but I don't think California is going to get a lot of servers because your electricity is too high. But they want to put a bunch of them in the Permian, and it always goes where there's fast electricity. Chattanooga's a great hub for that. So you have to have fast internet and cheap electricity. Kansas City's another good hub because the Google Fiber's been there forever. But we have in Reno, we have Apple and Google servers in Reno, and it's funny, they have priority over the power grid. So Reno grew too fast. So what happens is, and we're very green there, mostly because everybody from California moved in. But what happens is when the air conditioning demand peaks in the summer, sometimes the grid can't handle it. And they have generators all in the hills, like every mile, to try to keep up with the demand, diesel generators. But what happens is they turn the houses off. because the server farms have priority. So don't ask me how they negotiated this.
The rolling brownouts.
Yeah.
And like, how is this relevant to like any like investment strategy? Or you're just
It's extremely relevant. He's talking about all the themes that we talk about all the time.
which is nuclear,
Well,
coal,
which is
oil.
AI from a broad sense, and then all of the components. You know, we talk a lot about kind of first order, second order, third order thinking. And so, like, you know, if you look at AI, the first order thinking is, all right, well, you need NVIDIA chips to make AI work. But I can't just give someone a NVIDIA chip and you're running AI. You need the data centers. You need someone to make the data centers. You need to cool this. You need the servers. You need to cool them. You need the power. You know, all of that stuff. And it's things that, you know, we talk about all the time in my newsletter, on these podcasts. And I'd love to get your sense of this. So ahead of DeepSeek, you know, that news coming out, I mean, I was shocked to the gills on all of these names.
Oh, and they flew.
You know, I got out of just about everything, not because I believed that DeepSeek, you know, what they were saying was true. I'm assuming it's not, but I think it got people asking uncomfortable questions about all of the capital expenditures, you know, about the US's role as the dominant player in AI. And, you know, and I figured things were bubbly, and that the DeepSeek news was kind of the pin, and figured, all right, I'm going to get out of all of this stuff, and then I'm going to find better spots to get in. And, you know, and I've been getting in. I mean, I've been in VRT, which has been great the past couple of days, which you mentioned, and some other names. But, you know, what's your sense on all that, you know, where we are here?
Well, DeepSeek was bogus report. That's an ex-hedge fund manager that just tried to manipulate the market. And I'm sure he had the permission of the Communist Party.
Oh, yeah.
He announced it right after Trump announced this Oracle, SoftBank, and anyway, the first wave of $1 trillion of investing. And in America before Apple and NVIDIA piled on with a bunch of other tech companies. But so I think China did that just to take some of the mojo away from Trump. But this guy from DeepSeek, you know, you can't short in China. And this guy is a hedge fund guy, the guy that found DeepSeek. Anyway, turned out, you know, it was the number one selling app on the Apple Store, but it kept crashing. So that's why I bought a VNet, because it's cloud computing in Hong Kong. And it wasn't working. So, but when Wall Street gets a negative story, then others pile on to try to manipulate things. So, you know, stock market manipulation is real. Markets are totally illiquid nowadays with Citadel. I know because I have investment newsletters. When I recommend stuff, things pop all the time. And
Well, maybe it's just because you're that good.
well, we do have real sales and earnings, but you know, we're holding things for long-term gain, so we're not trading.
Right.
And you know, we do expect to have, you know, 5 or 6 quarters of earnings surprises before we move on to something else. And obviously, we love monopolies. We consider NVIDIA a monopoly. We've had it for 5 years. And but it's interesting, you know, I was I was in Supermicro a couple of years ago. So I and then when the Hindenburg report came out, of course, doesn't exist anymore. I says, this doesn't make any sense. And none of the analysts covering Supermicro cut estimates. So I always follow the actual analysts, not everybody else. And it's unfortunate that, you know, their auditor quit probably because of liability or something stupid, and they blame them for that. But Supermicro makes the best rack systems out there. And they did have a big order backlog. And if there was a problem, they had a 5-year order backlog. And they were booking the sales, paying the commissions, and of course you don't deliver for 4 or 5 years. So that was probably the real issue because it squeezed their margins. But to this day, Supermicro still makes the best rack systems. So I wrote it through the whole thing, despite the fact it was being attacked by short sellers and all kinds of people. And I had somebody say, "Hey, I've lost 90% on this," and I said, "Did you know it's split 6 for 1? Can you check your statement?" You know what I mean? And could give me grief, and we put risk rankings on all our stuff, but it's it just we live in a world of where there's just no liquidity. And so the other thing I like to tell people is there's about 4 months of efficient markets during earnings season, and then there's 4 months of mean reversion. Okay, and so after earnings season is over, guess what? We'll take the winners and knock them down. And my son's in the last quarter at Stanford Business School, and they're figuring out how to do all the NVIDIA mean reversion programs, and they're nonlinear math, and they're usually 12 or 13 days, and they jerk the market around, and then they get out as it starts to get a little more volatile. And anyway, that's what they're teaching the kids. And the other comment I have is, NVIDIA is one of the last to report. And you might notice that NVIDIA doesn't go up after its earnings announcements because they've written like $3 billion in call options. And of course, 42% of call or options are daily now. And Citadel and Virtue Financial and all these firms have written all these call options. They don't want to fill them. They just want to collect free money.
Yeah.
So
that's what Jeremy does, by the way. That's what the Vreeland master, we call him, does.
Yeah, but not at the same scale as.
God, if I did, yeah.
Let me go back one thing. So you didn't answer my question, and I didn't really get to the point. So you talked about like different communities or geographies. Like if you're in Tennessee Valley, are you saying go buy a house in Tennessee because there's going to be a bunch of stuff going on in Tennessee? Is that your point, or like why talk about Tennessee?
My comment is the server farms go to wherever there's fast internet and cheap electricity. So in Tennessee, you've got nuclear and you got hydro.
So, but my point is why though? Well, why bring up Tennessee? Is there going to you saying you should be buying real estate in Tennessee?
No, I mean, I'm sure
just a general statement.
I'm sure you do good. I mean, I happen to have a home in Nevada. I'm on the ocean here and just south of Palm Beach, 8 miles south of Mar-a-Lago. In fact, our community's in the Wall Street Journal right now because Larry Ellison moved in, and so did Sean Hannity. But yeah, there's some hot spots in America because people are migrating there, and
those are the spots. Got
I'm very bullish on the South. I personally am in Alabama. I belong to a golf course there, and it's a good golf course. And Alabama's always been a boom place. I've been going there for 30 years, and no one's unemployed. It's just a boom, and they're going to benefit as all the Germans have to move out more of their manufacturing there. There's 7 auto plants in Alabama. And
I would suggest you don't want to live under a transformer or right next to a nuclear power plant.
They have.
Well, I think that's what happened, dude. That's where I grew up. I think that's the problem.
That explains a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah, they have cheap electricity. The real reason that the green energy has had a hard time is no one ever put in a grid to send it somewhere. So it's fine to have green energy in Palm Springs and Vegas and Arizona. But if you try to send that electricity to Salt Lake City, you're going to lose 40% of it on alternating current. So you got to have a direct current grid. So we have direct current grids for hydro, like the Pacific Northwest to California, Quebec to New York. There's some up in the Northeast, in the Michigan, Minnesota area. And but if they were ever serious about green stuff, put the damn grid in. It's like when California wanted to go hydro or hydrogen, and I had a whole team at COP26. So everybody leaves that saying we're all going hydrogen. So California is putting Sempra has the natural gas pipeline, so they're putting hydrogen in the natural gas pipeline, and they're going to get it out the other end. And they said, "Where is it? It left." Well, hydrogen is like the smallest molecule, so it leaks. It doesn't matter if you put it in copper, PVC. You have to compress it in a liquid form. You can't put it in a pipeline. But see, they passed these laws, and no one took a chemistry class. The entire California legislature has never taken chemistry. Okay, so it's like I can't fix stupid. And Al Gore. I used to have a lot of airplanes. Al Gore is my biggest client chartering my planes. But Al Gore and Tom Steyer are in Davos now, or Europe now, because the green movement here is dead now, And so they're still pushing it over there. And then, of course, Klaus Schwab just quit the World Economic Forum. So they're trying to control, they're trying to be the new leaders of the World
It's a
Economic
power
Forum.
vacuum.
And there's a big rumor that Tom Steyer was the real president. In fact, his son Henry was in the White House, and he was only 30, so that's why they needed Joe Biden, because Henry was running things. But the interesting thing is, so running the U.S. wasn't enough for Tom Steyer. Now he's got to control the world. So anyway, very interesting.
Doesn't Tom Steyer own like a Boston sports team or something? Matt, one of
Oh,
your,
that
one of
was
your
the
teams?
that's the Bain Capital guy. My son worked at Stanford.
Oh,
He worked for Bain Capital before he went to Stanford.
right. I had to give Matt a plug here on the Boston sports teams.
Right, Celtics won last night. Let's go.
So I'm going to switch gears. Yep, if you don't mind. So you talk about solid state batteries a bit, and basically you've said stuff like they're a lot cheaper, longer shelf life, 10 times more powerful. Any thoughts on that? Like, is that like Tesla's the winner? I mean, like, who else would it be if it wasn't Tesla? Any thoughts?
It's BYD.
Yeah,
BYD.
that's one.
Do they trade in America? You can buy that?
They do. I think it's BYD, like F as in Frank, F as in Frank, or something like that.
Yeah, and Toyota's supposed to come out with it.
That's what I was going to say.
But
No, I'm wrong.
the whole thing about batteries is, I've got a dead Porsche. It's only 4 months old, a lithium battery. I'm trying to get somebody to pick it up today. But the whole thing about why China did better with EVs is they had cheaper batteries. And iron phosphate batteries can be 100% charged. They don't catch on fire, and they work in the cold climates. So that's CATL dominated that, and BYD's in that business, and they dominate. And EVs would be a lot cheaper if everybody's using those damn batteries. But now we're going to have tariffs on them.
BYDDY.
Oh,
BYD. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it.
I've definitely been keeping eyes.
Hey,
Go to
you guys
Mexico.
thought I didn't bring any value. You're trying to get rid of me.
Go to Mexico. BYD has it's called a seagull in China and Asia, but it's called a dolphin in Mexico. It's a $20,000 car.
Yeah, we're kicking around doing a 2X on this, but the ADRs don't trade enough.
Yeah, the volume's too low.
So
Maybe this podcast will get them trading.
There you go.
So you like this, Louis? This is the one you like. This is the name you like, right?
No,
Correct?
it hasn't hit my radar yet. I'm just watching the technology.
Yeah. And so how does this play with Tesla then? That's just not on your screen either?
Tesla's still iron phosphate. They do use the BYD blade battery in Germany. But remember, Germany's way up there. It's like where Canada is, latitude-wise.
Yeah.
So the German Model Ys are the blade battery, but everybody else is using those 4680 cells, the big fat ones. And so Tesla hasn't made a complete shift to iron phosphate. The Model 3 that's the cheapest has those batteries in it. So if you do make a city car or something cheap, it's going to have the cheap batteries. They're heavier, but again, they work in cold climates, and even Ford has it on the Mach-E. You want the cheap Mach-E has iron phosphate batteries. So Tesla's not there yet. I mean, Elon, of course, told everybody it's self-driving and the robotaxi will be the big thing, and he convinced everybody after the huge miss. Uber's coming out to compete. So we're going to have Waymo, robo-taxis, which will initially be Model Ys, and then we're going to have Uber autonomous, which are the Volkswagen Buzz thing. So it's going to be interesting whose robo-taxi leads the way, but I think Uber's going to be very successful.
We were looking at Toyota's hybrid tech like 6 months ago, comparing if we have a hybrid with a solid state battery, the efficiency's there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they want to cycle it. The more you cycle it, the more you figure out the life. And Toyota's turned out to be right with hybrids. Most of the hybrids will go 60 miles on electric now. And so the engine's more of a generator.
Pretty much.
At the time.
That's why they were able to detune them, put them in a specific power band to make them more fuel efficient.
Correct. And Scout Motors is a Volkswagen, and Those are ladder frame trucks. Scott Keogh is a really smart guy. He ran Audi, he ran Volkswagen America. He's leading Scout Motors now, and they all have a little generator on the Scout trucks to make them go 500
like
miles. So almost everybody's going to want to buy that generator unless you live in a totally urban area and you can always
it's like having
plug
an
in.
APU.
Exactly. Yeah, on an airplane. Yeah, exactly.
What do you think of Tesla? I mean, that's obviously a stock that elicits a lot of opinions from people.
I only liked it when the margins were expanding, which wasn't very long. And I never recommended it. I have it in some client accounts because they demand it. But I personally find the Cybertruck hilarious.
As do
It was
I.
designed for the zombie apocalypse, and my daughter just got a graduate degree from Columbian Film, and I keep encouraging her to make a zombie apocalypse movie where only people in Cybertruck survive. So Elon will fund her film career for the rest of
I
it. And
just I gotta stop you, right? So I just saw a Cybertruck that was covered in post-it notes, right? And so it was pink post-it notes on one side, yellow. It was like a Cybertruck and post-it notes for Easter. That is the post-apocalyptic Cybertruck right there.
well, down
For
here in
sure.
Florida, we have to wrap them because it is corrosive down here. Salt and
All
humidity.
right.
And it's somebody cleaned my barbecue after a year, and I couldn't believe they got it so shiny. But most of the time, you have to wrap a Cybertruck in Florida, so they're mostly black and sinister. New Model Y is a great car. They really upgraded it. But yeah, they gotta get their city car going. They got to get the robotaxi going. The Tesla system's totally different than Waymo. I live in the Sierra when I'm not in Florida, and we have LiDAR in all our vehicles so that we can see the damn animals at night because we don't want to hit an animal. But Tesla's not using LiDAR, which I find very odd. And Waymo is, and Trump trashed Waymo, or Trump trashed Waymo after the conference call. So we'll see. I know the new Volkswagen system, the Uber system is LiDAR.
I'm just gonna say a dumb question. Why do all the Waymos have that massive thing on the top? I don't get why do they need
They,
that?
they haven't shrunk everything yet. They've been doing it forever.
Right.
But there is a human that intervenes when it gets lost. So, and obviously they've been testing in San Francisco and Phoenix, and now.
No, they're out here. They're out in LA. I mean, I see them
Yeah,
all,
yeah,
see them all the time.
yeah. So they've done a good job. But when they get stuck, it will freeze for a bit, and then a human will intervene and get it out of its conundrum.
I've been in one that got stuck. It was surreal. It was funny.
And there's that one that was going in circles in the parking lot for an hour.
No, I've seen the scenario like that actually.
It's hilarious.
So I'm going to ask you another question, Louis. Right? So, do you believe in leaps or long dated options, anything like that? Because I mean, you take some aggressive bets, and I mean, why would you not maybe spread the risk a little bit in some leaps?
We tried that with our newsletter service for a while, and the only issue was we don't like to pay the world's biggest premium. So when the premium fell in the range and it was like 9 to 12%, we would recommend leaps on some of our stocks. But our win ratio was only like 67%, and the win ratio of our stock picking has been closer to 90 plus. And so that lower batting average kind of didn't go well. So we actually shut the service down.
Well, what do you think about that, Matt?
Yeah, a problem you can have, and I'm a big fan of options, obviously, as people who watch and read the stuff know, but when volatility goes up, option premiums go up, and so you see some of these things where it's a stock you like, and you go and you're looking at next year's call options, and the prices are such that the stock's going to need to make a massive move just for you to even break even, which is why I've talked about on this, I've been doing something I normally don't do, is I've been selling a lot of cash covered puts, because to me, if premiums are juice, I'd rather be selling them than buying them. That is not a strategy for the faint of heart. You've got to have the cash in case you get put to stock. I don't do a lot of it, but that is a bigger part of my portfolio than it typically is. I'll buy the leaps on a stock I like if the premium makes sense. If the premium doesn't make sense, I'll sell a put. You could also do a risk reversal. I've never warmed to that strategy, but I could see something like that working. That's where you sell a put and you buy a call. To me, now you've got two-sided risk, which is why I've never done it. But
like me, I like to write myself prospectuses. I'm not running a fund, except my own fund. I consider myself a fund manager for my own. I always think of leaps as a means of adding a synthetic position in a hybrid strategy. So I've been hinting at it a little bit today. Actually, I posted on Twitter that I have an idea for a hybrid strategy where you can utilize those implied volatility spikes on a leveraged product and then hold the underlying with synthetics and then roll that out. And then it essentially produces a fairly stable risk portfolio or risk parameter while maintaining good use of the implied volatility spikes in the short term. So the long term would be a leap with as a synthetic position to sell monthlies on like covered calls against a poor man's covered call. And then in the short term, running like weeklies on a leveraged product, and that seems to be a pretty good model for what I built it into. But it would be interesting to see more of that. And then as you were saying, like the BYD was low volume, so it wasn't able to produce the kind of leverage you would need to launch an ETF on it. But the same model would kind of fall into my realm, as in a synthetic long position to net some options premium in the long term, while dealing with the short-term volatility in a leveraged product.
I think that's a separate episode.
I think so.
I think that's episode like 21. All right,
so we'll do an options episode at some point.
The weekend I'm out of town, All right, so I'm gonna switch gears again. So Louis, I just read what I read. I love your stuff. I think you're a brilliant man. So I don't know if I'm reading the right stuff, but I've read what I've read. Okay. So these are the stocks you discussed. You talked about Allstate, ALL. You like that one? Or you did in one letter. So you want to pull out that one, Matt? ALL?
Yeah, we have ALL and Progressive, and they're not our top stocks at this moment.
No?
Like Sprouts Food Market would be one of the top, but
Okay.
I explain why I own the shares. So my family has 3 homes. I'm here on the ocean in Florida. I'm high in the hills in Reno. And then my family has a home in Solana Beach, Santa Fe area, right on the border. Anyway, none of the homes have insurance.
Wow.
The 2 of the homes had AIG, and AIG would come spray our home during fires and knock on the door because the stuff they spray will kill the vegetation. But that's better than burning up, right? And Cal Fire ran them out of the state, and it affected Nevada as well. And I've run money for fire departments, and they make a lot of money in overtime. So one of the dark secrets of fires is when they light those backfires, it's to get overtime. And normally when the fires come, the AIG would be parked in all the neighborhoods. They had their own fire trucks. They were 2/3 the size of a regular truck, and all that disappeared. So I realized the Palisades fire was really extreme winds, But I think Joe Rogan called it the best because a firefighter told him it was going to happen not that long ago.
Right.
So I don't know how they fix this. But and in Florida, we just don't have insurance because you have to change your roof here every 20 years to have insurance. But that's the insurance requirement. But it's also high risk. And so I just think that Progressive and Allstate, we're going to capture more of the homeowners market. And with the bundling and all, and that's why we recommend the stocks, and they have been beating.
And that's a great point. So property and casualty stocks, I did a detailed write-up in my newsletter a couple weeks ago There's only one ETF, not mine, for the industry. We included in our model portfolio. I just find that these stocks seem to do a whole lot better in downturns, still give you a lot of upside. I just wrote this morning and I forgot I was going to include something about property and casualty. I just wrote this morning about how I don't like low volatility ETFs. They've been doing well this year. CNBC was gushing about them like the other day that I heard. Long term, they completely, totally underperform. I think a lot of these factors are bogus. I think you find something that worked in the past, and if there's a true edge there, it gets arbed out. But I do think property and casualty stocks, if you want something low volatility, I think that works. I used to own a bunch of them. I got out of all of them, in this whole tariff mess, but I'm looking for ways to get back in. Allstate wasn't one I was looking at. I'll have to look at it. Another one I like is KNSL. Yeah, I mean, that could be an interesting.
Yeah, we have HC. I've had KNSL. I sold that recently, but it's a good stock. It's pretty volatile. We have HCI still. It's a homeowner insurance in Florida because Florida's a boom state, and it's
Right.
hard to explain. But I had to drive from Tallahassee down to South Florida, and I was shocked at all the development north of Ocala and Orlando.
Oh, no
So
kidding. That's
the whole
insane.
state's packed. If you move to Florida now, I highly recommend you go to the Panhandle. Maybe or
Me too.
it's just too crowded, and you get in the nice areas, you're going to be paying 100,000 a year for property taxes. So although the condo market here is softening because they have to assess all the buildings to maintain them, and of course they have high insurance.
Okay, next, Lily, weight loss. What do you think?
I have a ton of it. I sold Novo Nordisk 6 months ago. Lily's beat them at their own game. I'm very bullish on it. It's a huge holding of mine. Over 5% of my portfolios gapped up on the GLP-1 trials the other day. I finally went on GLP-1s. I can't even tell the difference. So I don't know if I'm losing weight or not. But it's only been a few months. But we'll see.
No, I agree. Sometimes I wish I was more of a long term than a trader because I got stopped out of Lilly, and of course it's gapped up since. But yeah, I mean, I've been a big fan, not of the drug itself. I mean, I think I'm a big believer in diet and exercise, but I think Americans, given the choice between an injection or changing their diet, they're going to choose the injection.
Yeah. I was a huge cyclist. I had some big wrecks, and I got to get a knee replacement. So I can't exercise like I used to. But we've always had those shots down here in Palm Beach. I mean, there was a gal, Dr. Mary, was always giving the shots,
Hey.
and I'm sure you had that all over LA. So 20 years ago. So now everybody's on it. So
Well, Jeremy's taking hair supplements, and we can all tell, right? I mean, look at that head of hair on that dude. I mean, it's incredible.
So Jeremy probably likes Hims.
The only supplement I take is boron, man. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't even take a multivitamin.
Hair falls out from excess testosterone. Yeah.
Next
You got
stock, MCore, symbol EME, provides data center services. How do you feel about that one?
I still have it. I've trimmed it, but yeah, it popped the other day on the news. But yeah, I still have that. It's it's they all come out with their earnings. They all get each other excited, but it got grossly oversold during the deep news stuff. So it deserves to bounce back, but of course it has to stand on its own 2 feet and beat.
You know this one, Matt? This is one of yours?
This is not one of mine, so I am gonna add
Put it on the
It's got
list.
a nice setup.
I mean, I like this pattern. I mean, undercut and rally at the 50-day moving average. My guess is at 394. This is one I'd probably sell, some 320 puts on if I decided to get exposure to it.
All right. Okay. All right. Next one, Guidewire, GWRE. This serves the PNC insurance businesses.
I have it. It's in my portfolios.
You know this one, Matt?
I mean, I know it. I've never owned it. It's not on my watch list, but
Oh boy.
it looks like a lot of things right now where, you made a low and now you're creeping up here. I mean, obviously having a nice day.
I could target 230 on that right now myself.
Well, I mean, it feels like this is like bricks and, bricks, and what's the other word? Bricks and
Bricks and mortar.
bricks and mortar, I guess, to the PNC biz. All right. Next one this is an interesting one. This is the coolest one I thought I saw on the list. H.E.A.T Aerospace, HWN, a Pennsylvania-based company that develops engineered solutions for aerospace.
We have that stock too. It's in our portfolios. You must be a great stock picker. You're naming great stocks.
I know, no.
I mean,
I know I'm
everything
the
you're
world's greatest
mentioning-
copy and paster. It makes me look smart.
I'm a chart
Well,
guy.
and everything's up like 3% today. So
Right. Okay.
that's pretty impressive. That's why we call him famous growth investor.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Exactly. All right. Next one. Speaking of Powell, it's POWL. Powell.
Huge holding. Huge, huge. Has to go higher. Although the earnings are decelerating, that kind of screwed it up. So, it's interesting that that's a small cap. So when we recommend a stock, because we have over 560,000 people that get our free letter, 115 start getting paid letters, and then there's specialty letters. But obviously, when we recommend a stock, we can generate, 60, 80,000 orders for that stock. So I'm personally responsible for driving Powell higher. And then its earnings momentum has peaked, but it's still got great sales and earnings. And so a lot of people wondered why they'd have to give back a lot of those gates. Okay. And but it's a great stock long term.
So these guys, some of these words are so big, I don't get it, but they manufacture equipment and systems for electrical infrastructure.
Yeah, and they do
Right.
it.
Which is the whole theme we've been talking about.
That's got
Got
Which
it.
then goes to answer your question about, the investable nature of all of
Got it.
this.
Yeah. So under Trump, we can finally use natural gas. Biden stopped the LNG exports, and he lost in the courts, but he was still appealing, and all that's been thrown out. The other thing is all the natural gas power plants under Biden had to sequester the
EQT, but I plan to get back in. What we've been telling people, and we had a guest on a couple weeks ago who was in the natural gas space,
David Black.
Yeah.
is that, AI is going to need more. And I've been told by other people, however much electricity you think it's going to need, 10 to 100x that, it's going to need more and more and more.
Great.
So what we've been kind of thinking is right now, natural gas. I've also been banging the drum for coal. I've been wrong about the coal companies. Every time I think they bottom, they find a new low. One of these days I'll be right, I think.
Well, I have an ESG story to tell you.
All right.
So I had a $2 billion large cap fund. I was top 1%, 5-star, all that stuff. So the president of the fund family flew out to see us all in Reno. And I was flying on the plane with him. I was coming from the East Coast too. And I assumed he was meeting us to do a promotion. He fired us on the spot. He gave our fund to the Rockefeller family for ESG management. The Rockefeller family shuns any fossil fuel investment. This is when ESG was exploding.
Right.
I pulled over 800 million out of that $2 billion fund and created this tax time bomb. Morgan Stanley promised them all this money and never showed up. But they were using my record to sell their ESG stuff. And of course, it wasn't as good. They drove the energy industry down to 2% of the S&P when ESG was booming. And of course, now it's been shunned by, BlackRock and everybody. And now it's energy might come back to, back up. But right now, all the plays are midstream pipelines. And unfortunately, natural gas is still weather related. All you need for natural gas is freezing cold winters and hot, miserable summers. It's good for demand. So the worst thing is like mild weather. So um, and then of course, we got oil prices at the lowest level in 4 years. So it's although they didn't drop prices in California much, so that's not a conspiracy. But the
Exactly.
the energy bets are all midstream pipelines right now.
That's exactly what David Blackman said too, by the way.
Yeah.
And what do you think about nuclear?
I'm not anti-nuclear. It was interesting when Microsoft started up 3 Mile Island with Constellation
Yep.
Energy. Constellation said they shut down 3 Mile Island because natural gas was cheaper than nuclear, but Microsoft wants green energy, so fine, they're restarting it. As far as SMRs, I know Glenn Lunkin personally, and I watched him do his presentation, and going to have an SMR in Virginia, but I don't know. There's a small chance it might melt a hole in the earth, and so it would be nice if
Great.
it would be nice if somebody could test it somewhere else, before we do it. The magnets are supposed to be amazing; they can lift an aircraft carrier, but until I only buy things when they earn money, but I'm rooting for it all, and I don't know who's going to win.
All right. I think we're a little over. So why don't you tell everyone, I mean, where they can find you, how they can access your newsletters, all that fun stuff.
Well, the main thing is my research is available free online. So I would encourage you to go to YouTube and look at Navellier Market Buzz. That's a weekly show I do with my daughter, and they have a lot of links there. And there's a free link to Investor Place Stock Grader. You can start using my Stock Grader for free. They'll ask for your zip code or something, but we also have free stuff on my management company site. There's a thing called Market Mail. Um, and I would sign up for that. That's a free weekly commentary from me and 4 other people. But so we give out free commentary, free databases. The reason we give all our research away free is we move markets. And when you move markets, then the government approaches you and tries to discourage you. So, like when I sold my management business in 2013, the SEC told me in a nice way, no, that's our money. That's not yours.
Right.
I'm still fighting that to this day. So I don't pay myself. I haven't paid myself for 25 years. Okay.
Well, Matt, just so you know, I'm a member now. You're going to be in the credit card bill on Louis' service when you see that thing pop up. That's me.
But we are moving markets, and that's why we have to give everything away free. And one last thing, Trump's in the management business, and his family, Laura and Donald Jr. got in the investment newsletter business when they took a big state in Salem, which is Eagle Publishing. So I find it ironic that I'm waiting for our president to start putting disclosures in all his tweets. So
A good point. You probably should.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that. That's a whole nother episode. Honestly, that's a new one.
We'll have to revisit this.
27.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
thank
All
you,
right,
Joe.
Louis, thank you so
All right,
much.
thank
This
you
is
very
great.
much for
See you
coming.
guys. Have a good day. See you
Thank you.
guys.
See you guys.